Again, if we come to interpersonal communication competence, it is the ability to use and create the personal connection with the other person. And there are three ingredients when we talk about interpersonal communication. One is the motivation. Whenever, as I said, whenever you go and interact or want to make a personal bond with somebody, the first thing is motivation. Why you want to do that? It can never be without reason. If you are doing it without reason, somewhere maybe that reason you cannot say, or that is not upfront, or that is not obvious, but somewhere that reason is there. First you need to consider and recognize that reason, because if that reason is not clear to you, then you are going to make mistakes. Then you will not be able to choose the words, then you will not be able to make the relational messages, then you will not be able to convey what you want to convey. So first thing is, you should have a clear cut motivation and the purpose why you are doing this particular interpersonal communication. And same thing applies when somebody is talking to you. Just try to understand why that person may be talking to you. That person is not talking to you without any reason. Maybe he finds you more interesting, maybe you are very intelligent, maybe you are good looking. Whatever is the reason, you need to identify not by asking, but just by talking to that person. And that his body language, his words, and everything will tell you. You just need to pay attention and observe carefully with patience to find out that. Next thing is the knowledge. Now, when you are making interpersonal relation with anybody, you're talking to anybody, you must have knowledge about the background, designation, from where the person belongs, what kind of family he is. The more you know about the person, the more you will be able to tell about yourself, the more you will be able to understand the other person. So knowledge of the other person or the other party or the other individual or the group will make your interpersonal communication much better and much fruitful and much impactful compared to when you don't know your audience. Next thing is the skill. And skill is, once you have the good motivation, once you know why you are doing this communication, and then you have the knowledge of the other person, then automatically the skill development comes. If you know the why, if you know the how, then what you are going to do is becomes automatic. You will be able to communicate what you want to say naturally, and that skills develop with time. The more knowledge you gain, the more your purpose becomes clear, the more your skills will become polished, and you will feel more confident, and that confidence will make you best interpersonal communicator. Now, all these, if we say motivation, knowledge, skills, if you see, if where all these three matches together or they overlap together, the communication competence becomes natural. Because in any communication, these three things are important: the purpose or the motivation behind that communication, the knowledge about the other person, and the skills with which you can deliver or you can interact with that person. That skill could be your language, that skill could be your qualification, that skill could be anything from your hard skills. When you are talking about maybe your subject knowledge, maybe the topics of interest, maybe something which is of interest from your culture, or anything which you can talk about with the other person. You all know that interpersonal relationship has been affected in modern day through technology. We all use technology, and technology is something we cannot avoid, and that is why it has changed the way we interpersonally connect with people. So let's do a small pause and reflect activity where you have to find out what proportion of your interpersonal relationships or interactions involves the use of technology, and how might you personal and work relationships be different if you didn't have that technology to help you stay connected. Let us see here. You just write down just a paragraph or a one page. It is not to test what you are writing, it is not to test your English or content. It is the exercise where you can pause and you can think about what the thoughts comes to your mind when you where you are using the technology to connect with people, and in what percentage, I mean, what is the impact of technology that is going to have on your interpersonal communication. Just write on that just from 2 to 5 minutes, and you will find that there is a lot of difference when we are in front of people and when we are just talking to them through text or through some media. Here we start with three factors which are going to affect your interpersonal communication and which are very commonly you observe when you go out and meet people. And these three factors are age, cultural differences and context settings. When you go out, you talk to people, you find different people of different ages. Sometimes you find youngsters. When I'm talking to you, maybe many of you are the youngsters, many of you may be senior professors, many of you may be just pass out graduates or the scholars. The age difference is very important because that allows you in understanding how you can connect best with people. So if you are dealing with if you are talking to child, or you are talking to the elderly population, or you are talking to anybody else, if you know the age, that helps you out that helps you out effectively in deciding what kind of communication you are going to do. Suppose here I will give you a very good example. Suppose somebody gives you a number of a person and says talk to this person and ask about whether the work is done or not. I want to know the status. Your boss says, I want to know the status, call to this person and find out. Now if you ask your boss, that boss, what kind of a person he is, what is the age, okay, he tells you the age, he is a 35 years old guy, then you know what kind of words or what kind of a tone you can use. So this is an important factor when you are communicating somebody on phone or through some distant means. Second thing is cultural differences. Now you ask your boss, okay boss, tell me whether this person is from Delhi only. Then your boss tells, no, he is from somewhere from south, he is from Tamil Nadu or Chennai. Then you get, okay, this guy maybe does not understand Hindi well. Maybe somewhere you want to add more of English in that too, in a slow manner, so that he understands your voice, because there is cultural differences. The way they speak, the way their tone is, the tone of their English and the tone of your English may differ, so you will talk accordingly. So if you know the cultural background, that adds more to what and how you are going to communicate. And third important thing is context setting. Suppose you are talking to somebody in hospital, or you are talking to somebody in meeting, and you are meeting somebody in cafeteria. Now all these three settings will decide what and kind of a body language, or what is allowed, what words are allowed, or what things are allowed to be done. Because if you are going in a hospital and you go with a casual style and you are making others also disturbed, maybe you are going to meet your friend, but it does not allows you to disturb other patients. So context of communication, maybe interpersonal communication, is very important, because that decides how you are going to behave even with your close ones, and how you are going to deal with your close ones when they are in the meeting room. Now I'll tell you three simple techniques, or the simple, I would say, the major steps that you can take to improve as a interpersonal communicator. The first thing is define and clarify your communication ethics. Define and clarify does not mean that you are going to tell people that what are my ethics, what I cannot say, what I will say, how I will say, I cannot do this. You don't have to tell people. What you have to do is just take the paper, just write down what are the things I don't like and what are the things I like or I value. Once you find out, then you will find, you will automatically generate. If you don't use the abusive language, you won't allow others to use. But if you yourself can use it, then of course you will also be tolerating somewhere that, okay, if I do it, maybe some other person also do it. But then also it defines, I do this but not in this particular time, not at this particular moment, but not in the profession. I use this word, but I never use it in my professional life. So all these things you must clearly define to yourself, so that when you are talking to others, You should be able to communicate strongly, firmly, but in a polite way, that this is what I expect, this is what I don't expect. Defining and clarifying your communication ethics will not only help you, it will help all of other people who are coming in touch with you, to understand you as a personality, to understand you as a person, and they will definitely respect you much more than what you can expect. Second thing is practice, practice, practice. Every time you interact with somebody, don't think it is just a transaction, because every transaction, every communication is going to impact your next communication, and it is going to hamper or it is going to distort your previous communication. Somebody is talking to you nicely today, but tomorrow he starts misbehaving. So yesterday's good behavior can be nullified through today's bad behavior. And on the next day he becomes more courteous, then the last day's bad behavior again becomes the good behavior. So it is the communicator's duty as well as the interest that every time you communicate, every time you interact with somebody, take it as your practice. Take it as a chance to establish yourself as a good communicator. It's not always like you go and talk to a person and the work is done and it's over. Don't think like this, because next time your last communication is going to affect your next transaction. Maybe you are in office, maybe you are talking to your colleagues, maybe you are talking to your parents. Every communication, every interaction is going to be affected by your previous interaction and is going to affect your next interaction. Next is adapt to the situations, communication situations. The more exposure you have, the more you interact with people, you will expose to more and more situations. The more situations you handle, the more you will be able to develop your skills. But remember one thing, every situation is unique and no situation is repeated entirely same in anybody's life. As it is also said, you never cross the river in the same water. When you cross the river, every time you cross the river, every time you enter the river, after every second the water is new, because the old water has flown away. Similarly, when you are communicating, every situation is unique. Every situation is giving you something that cannot be replicated. Today you talk to somebody and somebody gets impressed. You went to the doctor get impressed with your behavior and he waives off your fee. He says, you are a nice person, I don't want to take any fee from you, go. But it does not mean that every time you go to a doctor and doctor will not charge you, because every situation is giving you something different. Every situation is having some story attached to it which cannot be replicated. Maybe that doctor is very happy from his marriage and the next doctor may not be very happy from his family. So you need to understand that you have to identify every opportunity of interaction and communication as a unique one. Take the lessons out of that, give your best shot and come out with the flying colors. Don't get disheartened. If people are not happy with you, that is not your problem, and if they are happy with you, that is also not your problem. You just have to focus on learning and learning and learning to become the best interpersonal communicator. Now, we are just coming to end of this session, and to get started, I'll tell you a small set of questions which you can ask yourself to become better communicators and which will make you a better interpersonal communicator. But before starting the communication, because everything starts from thinking, whatever you want to do, whether you want to initiate something, whether you want to plan something out, you need to first think about it. And how you are going to think about it, we will deal with that in the next lesson. But for the time being, just remember that there are certain questions which you can pose on yourself to become better communicators. First is, what are the expectations people have for me, given their cultural background, and how should I change my expectations given my partner's cultural background? What are the expectations people have for me given the context, that is the personal relationship, work situation, health setting or computer mediated interaction? How should I change my expectations given the context? What are the expectations people have for me based on my age? How should I change my expectations based on my communication partner's age? As you see, if you understand your own expectations and the more you understand the others' expectations, the more clear you are in your message. Because if you deliver what is expected, there is no point of conflict. There is no point of breakdown of any relationship. It's all about expectation, understanding the expectations. And the truth is, expectations cannot be understood in one particular interaction. They change daily, they are fleeting, they are temporary, they come, they go. So, as a communicator, this is not a bad thing, this is a good thing, that because expectations are changing, that is why we need to improve as a good communicator, as an interpersonal communicator, so as to grow as an individual, as a personality, as a professional, and as a teacher. The list can get you started thinking about how to adapt your communication behaviors to the different kinds of interpersonal interactions. See, these questions are not comprehensive. They are just few of the questions which will give you some insights. Many other questions can help you become more good communicators, that you have to identify for yourself. The more questions you ask yourself, the more answers you will get from yourself, because nobody can give you answers. Communication that comes from your mind and heart is the best communication. And communication is not about what you're doing outside, it's more about how you carry your inside. That's what the communication is all about. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with me, and I hope you have enjoyed. Any questions, any queries, I'm always free to answer you people. Thank you so much. Here comes one more, just take 2 minutes for all of you. This exercise is going to give you some learning about how in a written communication we talk to our people and how those words can affect the interpersonal communication. Have a look at your official emails just for 5 minutes. What differences are there in your email or instant messages to the acquaintance versus to a friend? Suppose you sent a mail to your friend and you sent a mail to your colleague. What's the difference you saw in both of these? I'm not talking in terms of what you're talking about. I'm talking in terms of how you greet your friends and how you greet your colleagues. How you talk, what words you use with your friends and what words you use with your official colleagues. And do you use the different greetings? Do you use the different signs or your names differently? How do these features of the messages determine or reflect the relationship with your friend or the official colleague? Your mails, if you can see the mail, you can identify the person who is sending the mail, what kind of a relation he carries with the other person to whom he is sending the mail, whether they are friends or they are boss or they are the subordinates or they are just a colleague or they are the teammates. Whatever that is, that will be reflected in the words, greetings and all kinds of gestures that are shown, or the punctuations shown in your message, in your emails. This exercise will give you understanding about how the written messages gets affected by your relationship with your people and how does the words convey different meanings to different people and how that can be improved by improving your mails and by understanding how your audience wants to listen to you. Thank you so much.